Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. This happened to me when I was 16. I decided to do something over the summer break just so I wouldn't get bored. My dad offered me the chance to house sit for one of his coworkers while she was away on business. I agreed, and he made the arrangements. He said I'd get paid $200 for 5 days, seemed like a pretty good deal to me. On Monday morning, my dad dropped me off around 7:30. His coworker was in a real rush, so she briefly explained where everything was before grabbing her bags and hurrying to a cab headed for the airport. At first, I didn't feel bored at all. The house was nice, and she had a cute dog, a small Maltese named Ivy. I love animals, so having her around was a big plus. I guess the main reason she needed someone to house sit was to take care of Ivy. I spent my first day playing video games in the living room, then took Ivy for a walk around the block a few times. Later, I watched some scary videos on my laptop before ordering Chinese takeout for dinner. After eating, I went back to watching more horror stories in the guest room where I was staying. The next few days were uneventful. Mostly, I spent time with Ivy, played video games, cooked, and cleaned the house. I wanted it to be tidy when the owner returned. Then, Thursday night happened. The next day, Friday, the woman was supposed to return. That night, I finished dinner, washed the dishes, wiped down the counters and stove, and made sure Ivy had enough food and water. Then, I went to the guest room and got comfortable in bed, watching videos again. Around 11:30, I suddenly heard a car pull into the driveway. My stomach dropped. No one was supposed to be arriving, not the owner, and definitely not a delivery or mailman at this hour. I paused my video and listened. Heavy footsteps crunched up the walkway, then, bang. 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 Someone was pounding aggressively on the front door. My heart pounded just as hard. A deep, angry voice shouted, "Open up, Jenny. I know you're in there. Open the door, now." I froze. Jenny was the name of the woman who owned the house. This man was looking for her, but why? I thought back to what my dad had told me about her. I remembered him mentioning she had an ex. Could this guy be him? "Open the door, Jenny," he roared again. "Open it, or I'll do it for you, and you won't like it if I do." Terror gripped me. I forced myself to move, creeping out of the guest room and slipping on my shoes and jacket. I had left them by the back door earlier, thank God. Then I heard it. A chilling, unmistakable sound. The hammer of a gun cocking back. I stifled a gasp and rushed back to the guest room, scooping up a trembling Ivy. She let out a soft whimper, and I stroked her head to keep her quiet. Boom. 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 Gunshots. My whole body shook. If this man fired enough times, either the door would break, or I would be hit. Hands shaking, I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and dialed 911. I spoke quickly but quietly, explaining the situation to the dispatcher. Then, I called my dad. By some miracle, he was still awake. I barely got the words out before he said he was on his way. Just as I shoved my phone into my pocket, I heard it clunk. The doorknob hit the floor. The door creaked open. He was inside. I silently locked the guest bedroom door and ran to the window. The room was on the first floor, so I could escape, if I was fast enough. I threw the window open, climbed out with Ivy in my arms, and ran. Behind me, the man screamed, "Hey! Stop!" Then, bang! Bang! I shrieked and ran harder. The shots whizzed past me, missing by what felt like inches. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs were about to give out. Then, I tripped. Pain shot up my knees as I hit the pavement. I twisted around, gasping, flashing red and blue lights. Sirens. The man behind me whirled around just as cops swarmed him, tackling him to the ground. Before I could process what was happening, my dad was there, pulling me into a tight hug. I clung to him, still shaking, still gripping Ivy. That night, an officer volunteered to stay with us in the house to make sure we felt safe. The next morning, Jenny arrived home. When she heard what happened, she was horrified. She gave me $500 extra for keeping Ivy safe. To this day, I believe my love for scary stories saved my life. They prepared me for something I never thought I'd actually experience. But sometimes, I wonder, what if Jenny had been home that night instead of me? Would she have survived? I really, really hope so. As a teenager, I waited tables at a local restaurant to pay for gas for my car. That's where I met Mr. Creep. At first, in my naive mind, he seemed fairly normal, despite the fact that he was over 20 and constantly pushing to go on a date with me, a teenager. Leaving my job after dark always made me uneasy, so I taught myself a routine: get into my car, shut the door, and lock it in one fluid motion. I even practiced it until it became second nature. It made me feel safer. One night, after a long shift, I walked to my car as usual and climbed inside. Then, he appeared out of nowhere. Mr. Creep lunged at my door handle, yanking it hard, trying to open it. For a split second, our eyes met through the glass. Then, he smiled. And what I saw in his eyes chilled me to my bones. I don't know how to describe the evil I saw there. It wasn't just creepy, it was something deeper, something predatory. From that night on, I was terrified of him. But I didn't let it show. I was too afraid of what he might do if I directly told him to leave me alone. Instead, I tried to avoid him as much as possible. The worst part? Every time I told people what he had done, he lied his way out of it. He also kept trying to be alone with me, coming up with excuses to impress me or get close. My instinct was always the same: run. About 2 weeks after that night, the restaurant got robbed. There was strong evidence against Mr. Creep, but not the kind that would get him charged. I sent all my text messages with him to the police chief, hoping it would help. Not long after, he disappeared. Still, I always looked over my shoulder. Then, 5 years ago, he messaged me. Out of nowhere, he found me on Facebook and started ranting about his top-secret military clearance and the huge acreage of land he owned. Something about it made my stomach turn. It felt like a trap. I blocked him and tried to forget about it. Then today, while scrolling through posts about an unsolved murder, I saw his mugshot. He's now facing murder charges, along with 2 other violent felonies. I'm relieved he's finally behind bars. But I can't shake the feeling of just how right my instincts were about him all along. I thought I'd share a story from my past that, for some reason, has been resurfacing in my mind lately, an unwelcome guest I'd rather forget. Maybe writing it out will help me put it to rest once and for all. The year was 1986. I was 16 years old, standing inside Union Station in Indianapolis. It was around Christmas time, or just after. I was with my mom, my 2-year-old sister, and my 21-year-old uncle. At the time, my uncle still lived in Indianapolis, while the rest of us lived in southwest Indiana. We were getting ready to leave and drive home. It was cold outside that day. I was bundled up in my jacket, scarf, and gloves. My mom, God rest her soul, could talk a dead man back to life, so I was just standing there, waiting for her to wrap up one of her long-winded conversations. After a while, I started getting hot under all those layers. "Mom, I'm gonna step outside for a minute," I told her. She nodded and kept talking. I walked out, letting the cool air hit my face. It wasn't snowing, and there were no fierce winds, just the perfect temperature to cool off. Then, not even a minute later, a white Chevrolet pulled up to the curb. Inside were 2 big men with crew cuts, one in the driver's seat, the other in the passenger seat. They were huge, easily 6 feet tall, at least 280 pounds each. At first, I thought maybe they were from a local military base. But that was just an assumption. Then, they rolled down the window and smiled. "Hey, come here. I want to talk to you." The passenger was the one who spoke. Now, bear in mind, I was very visibly 16 years old. If this happened to me today, things would go very differently. But back then, I was polite to a fault. I was docile, apologetic, always afraid of offending someone or giving the wrong impression. I glanced up at a street light above me, then back at them. "I'm sorry," I stammered. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," they kept insisting. "Come on, we just want to talk." I tried to explain, tried to tell them I wasn't some street girl, that this was not what it looked like. But they weren't listening. Then, suddenly, the passenger door flew open. And the man lunged toward me. Something snapped in my brain. I was done being apologetic. I was pissed. "You don't have to get out of your car if you just want to talk," I snapped. "I can hear you just fine from here." But he kept coming. And I bolted. I ran straight back inside to my mom, who was still talking but immediately stopped when she saw my face. My uncle and mom both knew something was wrong. I told them what happened. My uncle's face went dark. "What were they driving?" he demanded. "A white Chevrolet." My mom's expression turned to pure fury. "Go get him." My uncle took off, bolting out the door, sprinting down the street. I could hear him shouting after them, "You sons of bitches! Get the hell out so I can bust your teeth in." Meanwhile, my baby sister started getting upset, and I tried to calm her down. A few minutes later, my uncle came back, winded and pissed off. "I almost caught them," he said, breathing hard. "But when they hit the traffic light at the end of the block, they just ran it and peeled out." The rest of our trip to Indianapolis? Ruined. But the moral of the story? Never let politeness override your survival instincts. Fuck that noise, who wants to die just for being polite? Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.